You've been thinking Colombia. You've decided that the Andes Mountains are too cold for you. Instead, you're looking to relocate to a warm and coastal city. What if I told you that Cartagena is much more than a tourist destination? It is actually a possible expat hotspot. Today, I give you reasons why and why not Cartagena could be your ideal expat location.
Hey, it's Eric from Generic Expats and welcome to Season 2 South America. We give you boots on the ground, real life videos and perspectives on living in and moving to Latin America, focusing on safety, cost of living, healthcare, weather, and telling the story of expats currently living in both expat hubs and undiscovered gems here in the region. As I slowly drive through and live in each country in Latam. After driving for nearly 2 years from Minnesota down through Mexico and Central America, I literally have been preparing to do this solo project for the past 15 years, and I hope you enjoy all the content coming at you right now. Hey guys, it's Eric here from Generic Expats. Welcome to Plaza Bolivar. Today I'm going to be walking you around the historic, beautiful downtown of Cartagena. I'm going to be giving you a summary of what I've experienced this past week. Natalie and I did a lot of research, a lot of things in order to bring to you our best knowledge and experiences and information about not only being a tourist, but also living here. And we met a lot of cool people, so we're going to talk about that today. We're going to be walking past the Plaza de Bolivar here, and I'm going to be starting off with the history. The history of this city is one of the most rich, and it's one of the oldest cities in all of Colombia. Therefore, coming to this city is definitely something you want to do if you want to learn about things that brought Colombia to be what they are today, right? The history of the Spanish coming over and how that brought a huge diversity of people from around the world. There's a lot of the African diversity here, and that is something you won't see in all of Colombia. Therefore, coming here is necessary to be able to have the full spectrum of the type of people that have been living here for so long. So it's a kind of an important place historically as well as culturally. It is also a UNESCO heritage site and actually had a little bit of difficulty with a couple of construction projects that they were starting to do in the downtown area, which almost got them disqualified from being a UNESCO heritage site. Therefore, it is a thing that the city is still hanging on to at the moment. However, it has battled a little bit with this in terms of some newer construction projects that would have disqualified them in the end. It might not be obvious if you're watching me with this long sleeve shirt, but I'm wearing a bandana now because of the extreme heat that you can feel here in Cartagena. It's definitely one of the hottest cities I've ever been in. People all around are just sweating buckets. I mean, there is non-stop intense humidity and heat, and it is just a place where if you do not like the intense heat, it's going to be a kind of a difficult place to not only visit, but definitely to live in if you are a bit sensitive to this type of weather. The average Fahrenheit humidity and weather that you'll experience here, at least in August when I was here the entire week, was I think 93 Fahrenheit, which is about 35 Celsius, real feel. And then it reaches up to the mid hundreds, 105 or so every single day, depending on how much sun there is and how much sun there isn't. So that's going to be a big factor. However, it just goes without saying, when you're in the sea level areas of the tropical countries, this is going to be the weather you're dealing with. And it's not easy if you're not used to it or if you're not expecting it. So definitely have your expectations set for it. It is the standard tropics of the coconut trees and insane heat that you would expect. Not every place has it in the tropics, but this place does. We're now entering into what is the square of the customs, or custom square, Plaza de Aduana. And I'm going to be talking now a bit about the safety. Cartagena is regarded to be this super unsafe place, very dangerous compared to the rest of Colombia, and Colombia in general is not considered to be the most safest place either. I mean, as of right now, 2024, some of the most safest countries would be El Salvador, that recently became super safe, and other places that used to be safe, like Ecuador, supposedly has become a lot less safe. This city actually, in the past week that I've been here, it hasn't really seemed to be a very dangerous place at all. I haven't had any issues with people that are trying to take advantage or rob or petty crime. That type of thing didn't happen. I mean, 1 week is not enough time to really give a good conclusion. However, it didn't have the actual feeling. The atmosphere didn't feel. I mean, that's not a great way to describe it, of course. Your feelings doesn't usually mean that much, but yeah, based on intuition or based on feelings, it didn't have the super extra dangerous feel that I was expecting and a lot of people talk about when coming here. I think perhaps a big reason for that is that I didn't go out with Natalie at super late times of the night. We were pretty much always doing stuff by day, early morning, late afternoon, and going home at 8. So perhaps some of the dangerous things that people do and the danger and the crime that does happen, it happens due to going out at maybe the late night 10 and beyond for the nightlife. Maybe the nightlife scene is a bit more dangerous. However, if you're coming here for just the daytime fun, if you're planning to go to see some natural beauty, go to the beaches, if you want to come out and check out the historic downtown like here, you're going to have a pretty good time. I mean, this is something that we found out from being here, is that the nature is fantastic, but perhaps the even better part is the actual historical downtown, its history, its beautiful architecture, and its atmosphere here. You can tell this is absolutely swamped full of tourists. I mean, in the shade right now because it's so hot. It's about 103 degrees or so. I actually tried taking an Uber Moto, which is one of my favorite ways to get around in Latin America, especially with these historic districts. Always have very, very narrow streets. It's hard to pass by, and I'd like to take the bikes. Well, the bikes aren't even allowed in here, but in general, if you can get a motorbike, Uber Moto, whatever you call it, that's going to be the fastest way around. I tried to get one on my first night here, and I did get a couple options, and then they ended up canceling on me, and I was like, what? And they said, oh, I can't pick you up because you're a man. I'm like, I'm a man? Like, what? I can't take motorcycles because I'm a man? Like, I didn't understand at all. And then the third taxi actually picked me up, but said, I can't bring you to where you want to go. I'll drop you off nearby. And I said, well, why? And he said, it's called parrillero. So it's actually having a passenger on your motorcycle, and parrillero being masculine, you can't have a male passenger on your bike. And there's certain streets where you see the sign that says no parrillero, like, you know, with the no sign. I'm like, okay, so is it just they don't like the men, especially men on motorcycles? They're like, well, supposedly it's to help combat the crime, and a lot of crime, or maybe a high percentage of that crime, does happen with two men on a motorcycle, and it has been for probably years. Actually, when I chatted with some expats about this, they said that it's been in effect, this policy, for some time, quite a few years. So this is something, I believe, more than 6 years old in the city. Parrillero, something I haven't seen before in any parts of the world, to be honest. This is the first time I've ever seen it. Parrillero, to keep the city safe. Perhaps it is doing its job. I don't know. I just arrived here for the first time, but it was a bit of a shock to me that I had to plan around going to places on motorbike taxis or the Uber Moto based on this policy. If you're coming here on vacation, it can be a bit difficult to know what to do and where to go. And if you really just researched in the prices, that's going to be your best option for not getting taken advantage of, getting the right prices, and not having to negotiate with a person without knowing the standard price of most tours and most things. You're going to be paying, also, if you don't have cash, an extra 5% on credit cards. It's just not part of the culture here to use credit cards. Therefore, whenever you want to pay with it, if it's even an option, which is not always an option, they're going to charge you that extra 5%. And if you get, you know, for example, with me with Charles Schwab, I don't have any charge at all from taking out cash, so there's no extra charge for me. I'm much rather paying cash. Now, in terms of the tourist pricing and having researched what you want to do beforehand, I mean, there's a lot of informal sales going on here. People will come up to you and be like, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? And if you don't know more or less what it costs, people are going to say, well, come here, come there, and this is what you want to do. And they're going to give you the highest possible price. Talking to people like her, perhaps, so give you some options, and you'll say, okay, well, I want to do this, that, this, or that. And if you didn't look online, at least do a quick Google search. It might be a little bit difficult to know if you're getting the double the price, because you can be kind of surprised when basically the example we have is we went to Playa Blanca, and we were a bit surprised at what the price we paid included. So that's something to keep in mind in order to not at least be taken advantage of while being a tourist, but also living here. It's just a really good type of tip in order to get the best out of what you're trying to do here in terms of price and value. Now, going back to the example I mentioned about Playa Blanca, Natalie and I wanted to go to the most popular beach, which is called the White Beach. And it, of course, was a fantastic experience. It was really, really beautiful. It was a little complicated, to be honest, about it, because we went on a holiday. Now, if you're coming on a Colombian holiday, on a Sunday specifically, on a 3-day weekend, it's going to be very, very busy, and that's exactly our experience. It was super busy, and it was a bit too busy to enjoy it. So in terms of research, I mean, besides researching the price, I mean, knowing what days to avoid, especially if you're a tourist on holidays, it's good to maybe make your decisions based upon what isn't the current local holiday in order to be swamped with people. We were on the beach in Playa Blanca, and the main Playa Blanca beach was pretty horrendous, way too busy, way too many people. Had to walk over them, and there's probably 5,000. I don't think it's even a joke. 5,000 people were there everywhere. And we had to walk past them. We went to Playa Tranquila in the end, and that was great. But we ended up finding out that the 70,000 pesos, which is about $18, only really covered the transport and the lunch. The lunch was nothing special. I mean, it was fine. And we were worried about, okay, well, this is a super touristy beach. It's super expensive. Cartagena is one of the most expensive tourist zones in the country. Okay, well, it's good to have the lunch already pre-sold or guaranteed. And then transport options. We did a bunch of research, and it was just almost impossible, literally impossible to get out there easily without taking like 3 different types of transport from where we were staying in like kind of the local area of Cartagena. We discovered it was 20,000 there and back if you wanted just the transportation. However, that included their extra fees of basically trying to charge the highest possible amount in order to get big commissions. So that's going to be another thing to keep in mind of how much the actual standard rate is, and if you can just separate the different services yourself in order to not get super taken advantage of. We felt a bit cheated, but then again, I mean, we were able to go to the place we wanted to go to, and we got food, and we were given everything more or less that we wanted. They said that we would have chairs on the beach, which we did not. So something to keep in mind if you're trying to go to a specific place. Playa Blanca is a bit oversaturated, especially on holidays. Definitely avoid it on holidays. That was our experience. Next topic I'm going to bring up is the cost of living and the prices, not only for tourists, but for locals. So I met a couple expats, and they gave me some ideas of what to expect for paying somewhat more local prices for accommodation and what tourist prices are for around here in the downtown historic district. It's a beautiful place to stay. However, you're talking $100 to $200 per night if you want a nice apartment or a nice hotel room. And if you want to live in a bit more local area, then you can find stuff for as low as, from one of the expats I chatted with, he mentioned almost around $200 per month. So you have a massive variation of tourist prices per day, which are similar to the local prices per month. $200 per day, if that's your budget, that should be okay for you. Cartagena is a good spot for you to go stay in the nicest spots of the city and to enjoy the nicest parts of it. But if you're trying to go on a budget, the downtown area definitely isn't good for you. Natalie and I, we stayed in the areas called Las Gaviotas. Las Gaviotas is a very local place. It was actually quite convenient in the location that we were able to take the local transport, because I don't have my motorcycle right now and left it in Medellin. So being that we wanted to have decent transport options without having to depend on a bit more expensive Ubers, because it's so far out, it's a 30-minute drive from the city center, we decided, okay, well, it's good to be near public transport, and that's what we did. Now, these are the different options for accommodation if you want to either live here or be a tourist in Cartagena. Of course, there's going to be hostels, there's going to be lower cost options, but in general, if you're looking to come here and you want the nicer experiences, it's going to be a bit more difficult to find, as there's so many international airports, so many people coming in with so much money, that the prices are just naturally more elevated based upon those types of people that are coming for those nicer locations and nicer experiences. Another interesting part of Cartagena is the culture. Of course, I mentioned in the beginning that the types of people that are here, the diversity that is here, is very different from other parts of Colombia. Therefore, it's always good to be able to learn about the history and the people and who they are and why they are here based on what happened in the past. And with Spanish colonialism and their slave trade, of course, that's going to be a big part of how the diversity came to be here. I actually just passed a restaurant here that actually seems pretty good price for the historic district, whereas in general, you're not going to find super low prices. You can find a 17,000 to 20,000 lunch here in this spot right here, which is, I don't know the name of this place, El Punto Deli. In general, you're going to be finding around 30 to 40,000 in a lot of places. We're actually walking towards what is called the district of Getsemaní, which is the art district. And it's a bit more of the artistic, cheaper bohemian side of the city, which is always awesome to go to. I went there a few times and really enjoyed my experience. And you're going to find much lower prices there. You're going to find some really good options. I went there for a 14,000 peso lunch, which is just over $3. And you're going to be able to find lower priced drinks. However, you're going to spend a little bit more just based on the cool atmosphere of the area. Speaking of the local culture, how it's quite a bit different from other parts of Colombia and the world, they have quite a bit of a Afro-Caribbean type of vibe, which is great. And the food definitely reflects that. The food has nice coconut type of rice. There's a lot of fried fish everywhere. It definitely has the kind of Caribbean coastal type of cuisine with plantains, sweet and the regular plantains, and a mixture of that with beans, sometimes lentils. I mean, that's what we had pretty much every day. So that was kind of a cool experience eating the local food here. You can find it in other parts of Colombia, but it's, of course, it's going to be a bit more authentic here. This is where it's from. And besides the food in the culture, you have the music. Now, the type of music here is very, very good with salsa. Champeta is another local type of regional type of music. And bachata, merengue, reggaeton, all of those things are going to be very easy to find. One of the expats I ended up interviewing, Kevin, he said that he loves the music. He has a passion for music. He's a very passionate guy about this particular thing. And he said this is kind of his paradise because of that. This is a very good place to dance, to go to bars, and have the type of local people enjoy a fun time of enjoying the local type of culture when it comes to a bit of local beers, costeña beers, along with some salsa dancing throughout the night. An interesting difference from Cartagena to the other parts of Colombia is that it might not be all of Cartagena and it might not be all of other parts of Colombia. However, it is actually pretty common to see kind of issues with trash and issues with a bit more of a dirty atmosphere. It seems like the over-exploitation of the city has still not been totally controlled to the point where it's a bit nicer and clean. I mean, of course, in the streets right now, it's quite nice. I believe the city center is quite nicely taken care of in the daytime, at least. And it does become kind of dirty throughout the night. Of course, they can only clean so much. But in terms of the rest of Cartagena and the areas we went to, for example, Playa Blanca was actually quite dirty. It was pretty intense. It could have been because we went on a holiday. However, it just seems like the type of culture of taking care of nature and making sure that the roads are slightly clean, or that people like bring stuff with them, that is not quite so much a priority. In other cities, for example, in Medellin, I mean, you're going to be seeing dirty places, you're going to be seeing garbage in some places, but the levels that you'll see are far lower. It seems like the city's taking care of a lot better in that regards, and that's kind of an interesting difference between Cartagena and other cities like Medellin or Santander, for example. When I spent my month in Bucaramanga, it did have some areas where there are people, ditching their trash, or they're sorting through trash to try and get some, to try and do some recycling for cans or whatever it is. And those were left a little dirty, but in the end, they're actually quite a bit cleaner than here in many parts. I mean, of course, like I said, we're in the historic downtown. That's probably not going to be quite so common. But outside of the downtown tourism zone is actually quite interesting. Taking the bus back where we were staying in Gaviotas, I mean, we passed through some pretty dirty places. So that type of the culture was definitely a difference. It was definitely quite interesting to see just within Colombia how those differences can be, how drastic from Medellin, Bucaramanga to here to Cartagena. Welcome to the Plaza Fernandez de Madrid. This is another little stop as we're walking through this beautiful historic part of Cartagena, by far the best part of the city, I believe. Here in the historic downtown, there's been a lot of remodeling done, and it looks fantastic. It's so cool, it's so beautiful, and it is what it is based upon all those efforts, and that's great. However, not everything has really good infrastructure. The place we went to, in the example I gave before many times, is Playa Blanca. Playa Blanca, to go there, you need to take a bus. It's pretty much mandatory. If I would have had my motorcycle, of course, none of this would have happened, but I left it in Medellin for now. In terms of going to the beach, there is just really bad sand beaches with huge massive holes, and the buses go super slow, and there were so many buses, and the parking area was just not adequate. The infrastructure there was just not the correct way to go about things to make sure that, maybe one of the most visited places, top visited places in the Cartagena area for one of the most touristic cities of the entire country, they don't even have a parking lot. And it took us 2 hours to just leave the parking lot on this bus. That was literally mandatory. That was a bit disappointing because we wanted to be able to, go back and check out other parts. We haven't seen the castle yet, and we weren't able to go, to be honest, because there wasn't enough time, and that didn't fit into our schedule. So we missed out on a couple of things based upon kind of inefficiencies, but this is just part of the infrastructure of the area. So that was kind of a sad part of going there. Although, like I said, if I had my motorcycle, wouldn't have been an issue. So I guess one of the things you can do to avoid it is have your own transport, or just not taking the bus. And then the bus is basically the best way to go, because we looked into other ways. It was super expensive, or it was just super difficult. So that was our little lesson on the infrastructure, at least outside the city. Inside the city, it seems to be pretty decent in terms of Transcaribe, which is the bus system that takes you around. It's 3,000 pesos per ride. And that infrastructure is quite decent. And, you know, walking around here, it's mostly, I mean, it's partly walking streets, so that's kind of nice. But then there's also still quite a bit of traffic. So that's going to be another issue that I hope at some point the city actually becomes a bit more walker friendly, because that's kind of what a lot of people want, right? A lot of people want to come here, walk around, enjoy the streets without getting hit by a car. They don't fly through the streets, but still it's not good. All right, to wrap this entire little discussion about Cartagena up, I'm going to be talking about the expat community. That is always a big thing for people. If you don't speak any Spanish, it's going to be very helpful. If you speak some Spanish, it's still nice to see people from your own country, possibly from your own state or whatever, from the United States or from Canada, nearby, similar cultures. You can chat about, you know, different types of the culture that, you know, you find interesting or different or challenging or fun. And that's always going to be good. Since I've been here, I was able to sit down and chat with two different foreigners staying in the Cartagena area. And one has been here super long term, Christy, and then one is in the process of getting a digital nomad visa. Stay tuned for those videos. And guys, this community really surprised me. I wasn't expecting to see such a big group of foreigners living here, because it's such a tourist place. I thought, okay, well, I've lived in tourist cities before. I think I've mentioned in many videos. Cancun and Rio de Janeiro are the biggest ones, the best examples. I mean, Mexico City is massive as well, but it's also, you know, the capital and the biggest city. So it's a little bit different. They have their kind of expat or foreign bubbles. However, I've lived in like Cancun, which is just tourism, and that's it. Rio is kind of a mix. So that's kind of an interesting city, because it has, you know, the industries and the outskirts, but then the tourism in the beach areas, Copacabana, Ipanema, all that stuff. So I personally like Rio, but it's a bit intense to live there. And Cancun, I wasn't too big of a fan, just too much aggressive tourism. And that's just something that happens here. People are accustomed to it if you come as a tourist. I mean, if you go anywhere, you're going to have a bit more aggressive type of sellers, vendors in the streets trying to promote their stuff, and that's their job. I mean, that's what they do. But you have to respect them and just say, you know, gracias in Spanish, and just keep walking, and they'll leave you alone generally. So I didn't find that to be a big problem. However, you know, if you're living here, I was expecting a lot less, because just being surrounded by the atmosphere can be a bit difficult. But Christy lived in an area, or she lives in an area, where she's feeling comfortable with living in the, you know, biggest tourism city of the entire country. And then there's another zone right next to the airport called Crespo. That's where the other expat is living. And he mentioned that this is a hidden gem, because it's a residential area right next to the airport, super convenient, but it doesn't look nice from the road, the main road, and from the airport. So it's quite a shocking area to be in, thinking that it's not going to be that nice. So in terms of the expat community, the first thing I did the second night I came here was to go to an expat meetup. And I met all these great people, and they're super friendly. There's a nice community of people helping each other. And when you go to some Facebook groups, and you go to some types of events, or mostly the Facebook groups I refer to, the people are a bit aggressive. They're a bit unhelpful, and they just kind of, instead of being super friendly and super respectful about maybe you being a first time, or you don't know much about the place or the culture or whatever, they just, you know, they kind of rip into you. And I don't like that. I don't at all participate in those groups that have those type of people. However, the expat community, it's much smaller, but it's full of much nicer people. So this is kind of a really cool part of this city. Cartagena has people that are super friendly, foreigners that are willing to help, and they're willing to be there to meet up with you. I mean, I was only here for a week, and I met up with two. It was super fast. Other cities, I didn't have that same luck. And yeah, I want to say thanks to all of those that did meet up with me and share their story and to talk about what they're doing. I mean, meeting up with other expats, other people living abroad, it's always so great. And having them on my channel, having them give good, useful tips is great. And I mean, these are my tips for you guys. This is my summary of living in Cartagena, of staying in Cartagena for 1 week as this was all the time I could put into being here. I wanted to come here for a month, but things didn't work out the way that I was planning in the beginning, and that's totally fine. I came here for a week, and that's good enough. I mean, I'm absolutely dying of the heat. That's just typical of the coastal areas. Some aren't as nearly as hot as others. For example, Santa Marta is a little less humid from what I experienced when I was living there in 2020. However, yeah, that is going to be the final topic, is expat community. Great people that surround you here. If you're looking for a nice crowd that won't kind of belittle you, you can actually jump into those Facebook groups, and they're very helpful. So guys, if you're enjoying all the content I'm producing, if you like following me around all of these Latin American places, talking about my experiences, giving you pointers and information about all of these different topics that I find important as an expat, as a foreign person in Latin America, as a global citizen, as some people say, hit that like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. If you want to support all of the work that I'm doing, all the extra flights and all the extra videos and all the time I spend editing, guys, you can hit that buy me a coffee. Definitely, you can energize me up and get me to talk a little bit faster than I already am. I'm stealing this one from you, Scott. And guys, I'll see you in the next one. Hasta la próxima.